So when you take your list, I'm going to go down the terms of your list, and I'm going to point to the stuff. Okay? So first we have the skull, and there we have the frontal bone, which is the one on the front. When we look at the frontal bone, we have superciliary arches, and those are the eyebrow arches that on the bone. So the eyebrows then go on the skin. So then we have a place in between those eyebrow parts, the superciliary arches, and that's known as the glabella. And then we go to the side of the skull, and we have the parietal bone, so on top, so the helmet structure, where the skull becomes actually the widest. That's the parietal bone. And then we go backwards to the back of our head, and there we find the occipital bone. The main bone there is the occipital bone. In the occipital bone, we got a few structures that we point out. We got a big hole there, that's the foramen magnum. Next to the foramen magnum, we have two surfaces that will make a joint with the atlas, the first cervical vertebra right here. Those are known as the occipital condyles. Occipital condyles, those surfaces right here, on the side of the foramen magnum. And then, when we go backwards towards the back of the head, we have a bump. And that bump is where the trapezius goes in. And that's known as the external occipital protuberance. The EOP, the external occipital protuberance, that bump back here. And then from there, when we move to the side where we have the ear, behind the ear, that's the temporal bone, behind the ear. The temporal bone has a few parts that we point out. We have the ear canal itself, that's the external auditory meatus, or the external acoustic meatus. Or instead of meatus, you can write canal, that's also correct. And then behind that, we have the mastoid process, which is where the sternocleidomastoid electorate. Mastoid process, behind the ear. And when we open the skull up on the inside, we have the foramen magnum here, you can see that. And then, sort of in front of that, we have these two ridges that are formed inside there. We're actually going to have the inside ear there, the internal ear there. And those areas are known as the petrous portions. So they're like little mountain ranges. We have the ethmoid bone, which is stuck in here in the nose. I'm not really showing that. But what I'm showing on the ethmoid bone, so actually the ethmoid bone is not really testable in that respect. But what I'm showing are two structures, and they're right here in the front of the cranial fossa, the anterior cranial fossa that actually is. We have the crista galbi, that little thing that sticks up, the little bump thing that you think might be just a piece of plastic that's stuck, or that's left over. Next to the crista galbi, you've got a little area where there's holes in it. There's not really holes in his plastic skulls, but you see these little indentations, and that's known as the cribriform plate. That's actually where the nerves from the olfactory system come up into the brain. So the smelling comes from there. So that's the cribriform plate. And then from there, we move into the facial bones. The first one we have is the maxilla. That's the upper jawbone. That's where the teeth, the upper teeth rows go in. That's the maxilla. And the one structure we tag on the maxilla that's a structure is the palatine process, and that's the roof of the mouth. That's the bite behind the teeth on the roof of the mouth. And if you actually go further back, this is not the best to do that on, but if you go further back in the roof of the mouth, the back part is its own bone. There's a little small line that you can see where that screw is. You visualize that. And that back portion is its own bone, that's the palatine bone. So if I were to tag right here in the back, it'd be the palatine bone. But I would say name this bone. When I in the test, I say, name this bone, you give me the name of a bone. Name this bone is the frontal bone, even if it grew right by the glabella, it's not the glabella. Although in reality, I take the glabella too. But, you know, just for understanding, I have three ways I ask. I ask bone, I ask landmark, and I ask muscle. Bone is bone. Landmark is the glabella, it's the part of the bone that I'm pointing out. and muscle is just a muscle. Okay? So when we then have, from there we go to the mandible, and the mandible is the lower jawbone. This works nicely and it opens up. And on the mandible, what I want to point out is the ramus, which is the sidebar here. The piece in the front of it is the coronoid process. That's where the temporalis muscle will go in. And then the piece in the back that makes the joint with the temporal bone, and that is the mandibular condyle. So 3 terms there. Mandibular condyle, ramus, and coronoid process is the front bar that sticks out. Ramus is the whole, that bar. And then we have the zygote. Look. That was loose jaw problem. Then we got the zygomatic bone, and that's the cheekbone. So this cheek here, that's the zygomatic bone. And then one more I put in there, and that's the nasal bone, that's by the nose. That's just to make it easy for you. Nasal bone is by the nose. Okay? Good. So that's the skull. And then from there, we go to the vertebrae. And I'm going to put these up, this thing with 5 vertebrae in it. Well, let's look at the regular vertebra first. I'll take the lumbar vertebra, the biggest one. Okay, we have, what do we have the structures that we have? The structure, one structure, the body, that's the big part. That the vertebrae stack up on top of one another, the bodies. In between them we have the discs. If you actually look at this real quick, you can see that. So the body in one vertebra are these. And they stack up on top of one another, and in between them we have the disc. We don't test that, just so you understand. And then from that body backwards, so the body sits in there like this, so that's in the front. So then backwards, when we reach up, we have a few structures. First, we have the pedicles. These things coming right off the body are the pedicles. And then we got the transverse processes, and those are the things that stick out on the side. Transverse process, there's one on each side. They become upward. The pedicle is the bar that comes off from the body, and then the transverse process is the piece that sticks out on the side. I know, it gets so minute, doesn't it? And then we reach backwards, and from the transverse process we have another bar-like structure that goes to the back part, and that's the lamina. That's also on that list, the lamina. And as we reach to the back, the furthest back point possible is the spinous process. That's the stuff you can touch. You palpate up your spine, you can touch your spinous process. Okay? So that's a lumbar vertebra, the biggest one. Then we have a smaller one, but doesn't work that way, huh? That's the thoracic vertebra. It's a little small. You see this long spinous going back down. And then we got the smallest version coming up, and that's this one. And you see this one has a hole in the side here. That's how you recognize that. That's a cervical vertebra. The hole in the side. Yeah, there you go. That's the ass. And that's the cervical. So then we have 2 more, the C1 and the C2. And they're right here. The C1 is a ring. That's the first vertebra. That goes right underneath the skull, like that. That's also known as the atlas, because the atlas is what holds up the world. So that holds up our world today. And then the second one is the C2 is the axis, and that's C2. And on the axis we have a piece that I'm pointing out, and that piece is the thing that sticks up and reaches into C1 through that ring. It's actually the old body of C1. That's why it doesn't have any of that. And that thing is called the dens. And dens means tooth, like a tooth stick. And the cool thing is now that you can turn your neck because of this construction, because you can just rotate around it. You You have about 50% of your rotation comes out of there. The sacrum is the last, basically the last bone of the spine, or the second last. We have the coccyx underneath, but we don't point the coccyx out for the test. So the sacrum is fused vertebra together, and on each side we're going to have the pelvis. That's going to be next, or something coming up. When you look at that, let's look at it from this direction. From the front, you have the tip, that's the bottom, and in the top it's quite wide. The wide part is known as the base, and the tip part of the bottom is known as the apex. It's like an inverted triangle. Sacrum, or sacrum. The base is top, here, and the tip is the apex. Where it points to. And then in the front of the sacrum, we got remnants of intervertebral discs, and these are these lines here. And these lines, they go across. And so they're known as transverse lines. They're lying in the sacrum right here. That's in the front. In the back, when I turn it around, I have what I point there to is one structure, that's the median sacral crest. That's basically the fusion of the spinous processes of all those bones that come together. So that's that line, that crest in the midline. You can actually feel that on your own body now. That thing that goes around back is a little bump, a little ridge. That's that transverse line. So it's like the spinous process down there. Okay. Then we have the sternum, and we point out the sternum on the chest plate. The sternum is the white stuff. This is cartilage, and then we got the ribs coming out to the cartilage. So it's like, then we get the ribs coming in here this way. Okay? Well, actually, that's this way, sorry. This way. I know. So that's the whole bone, the sternum. And the top portion of it is called the Manubrium. And then we got a big part, that's known as the body. And then we got a tip at the bottom, and that's known as the xiphoid process. So we have the Manubrium. Then see, you got where it gets narrower, that's the body. And then when it comes to the tip, that's the xiphoid process. The thing is, in a real one, you can feel it on you. There's an angle. The top is a little bit differently angled than the bottom. So it goes a little bit like this and then like that. So here you can't really see that, but that's why they call it differently. So that's the xiphoid process. And then we get to the rib. And we have these ribs here. We just have generic ribs, of course. And what do we have on the rib? We have a head. That's the point that has a rounding to it. That's the head. If you squint with your eyes, it looks a little bit like a head. And then underneath the head, we have a neck. That's the skinnier part. And then on the rib, we got like shoulders. We got another bump sticking out. And that's actually the bump that connects to the, whatever that middle part is here. It connects right here to the transverse process of the vertebra. So that's known as the tubercle of the rib. So we have a head, a neck, a tubercle. A head, a neck, a tubercle. And that's the rib. And then we get to the upper extremity. And the first bone of the upper extremity is the scapula. The shoulder bone. The shoulder muscle. Bone, yeah, bone. That's right here in the back. So when I look at the scapula, the first thing that I want to orient myself to is the big ridge in the back. The spine of the scapula. That's the spine of the scapula. That ridge in the back. You can feel that on yourself too. Right here. Grab this back. When you grab your shoulders, you kind of grab it. Spine of the scapula. The space above is known as the supraspinous fossa. The space below is known as the infraspinous fossa. Supraspinous fossa, infraspinous fossa. When you take the spine and you walk to the edge, which is within your shoulder, that's the acromion process. Acromion. When we then walk around the humerus, we go to the front, we got this weird thing sticking out, and that's the coracoid process. the raven. Counterpoint.